Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm David Cobb from CBS Sports, joined by 24 Sports Director of Scouting Adam Finklestein for the second time this week. It's because it's an important week in basketball. It's the Peach Jam week, and Adam is there with even more morsels, insights, and nuggets to share since we last talked. Adam, how you doing, man? Have you won any awards from the Chamber of Commerce in Augusta or North Augusta since you put the city on your back and defended it last time?
And I'm nope, still happy to be here though in the great city of. Now this is the confusing part because it's Augusta, Georgia, where the hotels are, but North Augusta, South Carolina, where the gyms are. That's what So we're right on the line. We get the best of both.
Yeah, the fact that there's a North Augusta, South Carolina is a little bit confusing.
Stop. Come on, I got to be here for a few more days.
Oh, man. And we're going to make this a shorter hit this time. Adam, I thought we had something going, that was pretty special, but it turns out Adam is just appearing on everyone's show. And so he'll actually be on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel quite a bit, getting even deeper into detail on some of these topics as it pertains to prospects and the class of 2023 and some big names. And from what I can tell, man, it sounds like you have seen some clashes of the Titans among some of these guys who will be future stars in college basketball. A few names that came to mind from scrolling through your Twitter and reading some of the work at 24/7. We had a game between Team CP3 and the Oakland Soldiers, and that was Gigi Jackson, Mookie Cook. It sounds like Aidan Holloway ended up shining out in that game as well. That's one I want to ask you about. Let's start there and kind of give me the rundown of what you saw in that matchup.
Yeah, so Gigi's the guy who's obviously had all the eyeballs on him this week. He's made news flipping from South Carolina to North Carolina. As soon as this is over, he's going to reclassify and go to 2022. So the NBA scouts are looking at him for next year's draft. And Mookie Cook was just in that movie, that Carmelo LeBron movie. So this is the first time we've seen him play since the end of the high school season. So you've got these two guys going head to head, and it turned out to be a battle of the guards. You've got for the Oakland Soldiers, you had Jackson Shellstad, who's committed to Oregon, was phenomenal. And then you had Robert Dillingham, who of course is committed to Kentucky. He's on CP3, and his backcourt mate is Aidan Holloway, who's expected to come off the board here in the next couple of days. So, quite frankly, Dillingham and Holloway, it was haven't always clicked and been their most efficient selves this season, but they did in this game. Holloway was making shots. Dillingham, who is a quick twitch playmaker, just probably the most creative guard in the class in terms of having the ball in his hands. Just, if the Harlem Globetrotters are the Harlem Globetrotters still a thing? I don't know if they are or not, but if they were, they'd want this guy. So it was really, really entertaining to see those guys really do their thing. Excuse me. Holloway was, made 7 threes. Dillingham had the full creativity on display. But conversely, Shellstad is the guy who was up to the task of going head to head with them, because he's not necessarily considered, or maybe I should say he wasn't necessarily considered at quite the same level, but he really proved in that matchup in particular that he is a top guard in the class. Doesn't have great size, but has good burst, has very good skill, tough shot maker. So it was a lot of fun to see, those guys, and what was billed as a matchup between some of the bigs or the forwards turned into a guards game, and it made a high scoring affair that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Aidan Holloway, number 40 in the 24/7 sports ranking at the moment. Crystal balling towards Auburn, which honestly makes a ton of sense because Bruce Pearl loves small guards. You go back to Sharif Cooper, you look at Wendell Green, like he has no problem with that undersized guy. And my question for you on a guy like Aidan Holloway, who is in that 40 range, who has some good offers, but like you mentioned, the size, like how much of a hindrance is that in a player sort of breaking through into that top 25 or creeping up towards that 5-star status, when he's going through this recruiting process?
Well, Aidan is one of the very best shooters in the class. And so the size is really only a hindrance because, we're trying to figure out if he's a point guard or a 2-guard, or, he's probably a combo guard is the best way to say it. But what he does best is shoot the ball. And so I think sometimes you've got to be able to play to your strengths. He's kind of like a Marcus Howard type guard. If you remember the old Marquette guard,
yeah.
a little undersized, but can really get to his spots, can really make shots. Not like a pure point guard in terms of a throwback who's going to make everyone else better, but just really understands how to make shots. And so I think that's also where he's a little different than some of the guys that Auburn has had in years past. But in terms of his, kind of status in the class, I think so much of it is playing to his strengths, but identifying that hey, yeah, I can still be a top-notch shooter and get the team more organized, and finding that balance between doing what he does best, but still showing he can play with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Keeping it in the SEC, Robert Dillingham, he's a player who I believe you've seen. And
yeah, same team.
Yeah, right. So somebody who could be a really integral part of who Kentucky is moving forward if DJ Wagner were to go to Louisville, and honestly, even if DJ Wagner goes to Kentucky, I mean, we see the roster churn every year at Kentucky. There's room for multiple first-round caliber guards on a John Calipari roster. So this hoopla over DJ Wagner is obviously merited and warranted. He's the potential number one player in the class after G.G. Jackson reclassifies. But in some ways, it almost feels like Robert Dillingham gets slept on because, the Kentucky fans are just so honed in on what's going to happen with DJ Wagner.
So Dillingham is an interesting case study. As I said, if there was somebody who was going to go play for the Globetrotters, it would be him, because he is a magician with the ball in his hands, can do just about anything he wants as a handler, as a passer, even as a shooter. I mean, his ability to make tough shots off the dribble with minimal, if not any separation is special. The creativity with which he plays is going to delight fans and very possibly drive coaches mad, because he's the type of guy who's going to cross you up 3 times, spin dribble, fade away, and it's going to go in. So, the challenge in coaching him is going to be to let him play with the creativity that makes him unique, but at the same time value efficiency just a little bit more. The other thing with Dillingham is that he's really slight. So when you talk about size, he doesn't have great size, but he's also just very lean. And so being able to play through contact at the next level in the SEC in particular, that's going to be a challenge. So I think those are the things with Dillingham. He's as talented with the ball as any guard in the class, but he's got to build up his body and he's got to value efficiency just a little bit more without, while still maintaining the same creativity with the ball for which he's known.
Yeah, as a former slender guard myself, I appreciate the fact that the team with Aidan Holloway and Robert Dillingham is balling out, putting on a show for the folks.
And G.G. Jackson.
Yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for the smaller guards in particular, though. They inspire me. I grew up watching Earl Boykins and Muggsy Bogues. I used to open up the paper in the mornings and try to find Earl Boykins' line in the box scores, just because he was 5'5", but could go get buckets. Anyway, Robert Dillingham is not 5'5", so that was a bit of a tangent.
If only there were some 6'2" unathletic, undersized posts that I could relate to here, I could. But alas, I haven't seen those yet.
Yeah. We'll keep searching. They're out there. All right. So going now to Duke, which to me seems like the team in this class that has the most hay in the barn so far. Right. You go and look through the 24/7 sports rankings, and it's all right. Number 6, Mackenzie Mbako. Number 9, Sean Stewart. Number 17, Caleb Foster. And that's not all. The list goes on. So John Shire has done some really nice work with this 2023 class. Caleb Foster sounds like somebody who's been shining from what I've gleaned this week. What's the deal with him? What have we seen from his game?
So we've seen a continued escalation. I mean, this is a class, you alluded to it, G.G. Jackson going to go to 22, so the number 1 spot is totally open. In theory, it should be DJ Wagner's to take, but I just don't know that is happening. DJ hasn't, he didn't have a great USA basketball tour in Spain. He's been up and down here. There's questions about the consistency of his jumper, specifically for somebody who's really not a point guard and really not an elite athlete. You've got to shoot the ball at a high level. So, that number 1 spot is open for the taking. That's not to say that Caleb Foster is going to be, in the mix for that, but he is in the mix to be one of the top prospects in the class. I think certainly in the mix to be a top 10 type of guy. So he has raised the level of his game. I think he's a big guard who's always had a really good feel for the game, ability to play multiple positions. He's shooting the ball at a high level, making shots off the catch and the dribble. So there's there's a lot of different things to like about what he's doing right now. The thing that's interesting is he plays with Team Thad, and Team Thad was kind of in the consolation division of the Peach Jam. So they're playing here, but they're not in contention for the championship. Ironically, though, it's those teams that are in that consolation bracket that almost have a bigger stage because they're only playing one game at a time in the beginning of the day. And at 5 o'clock, that's when all the championship bracket game starts, and those happen on 5 different courts. So the consolation teams, there's only one 17 and under game at a time, and then when it gets to the championship bracket, they're all playing at the same time. So ironically, the college coaches are kind of focused more, at least in terms of sheer volume, on the consolation games. And so Caleb Foster's been the talk. I mean, he's playing at a high level. He had almost a triple-double the other night. He's stuffing all columns of the stat sheet. So that is, he has certainly developed a buzz here. I think, John Shire and Duke are really got to be excited about what they see. But at the same time, convincing him that you're always re-recruiting your guys. And so I think the sales pitch here is, hey, we brought in Tyrese Proctor a year early. We've got Jared McCain, but there's still a big role here for you to play right away, because with the level that Caleb Foster is playing at, you can bet there's all kinds of other people, whether it's other schools, G League, Overtime Elite, saying, hey, you're too good to go in there and play behind anybody. So that's something that Duke is certainly going to have to, and certainly is aware of, and have to, kind of counteract here for the rest of the month.
Yeah, Duke's next roster is going to have 7 of its 13 scholarship spots filled by true freshmen. And then with all the commits that Shire's already gotten in the class of 2023, it's like half the future of the game of basketball is currently committed to Duke, and yet hasn't played a college game yet. So a ton of talent going to be coming through Durham over the next couple of years. It's going to be interesting to see how Shire fares with that. Question as it pertains to a guy like Caleb Foster. If you go to his 24/7 Sports profile, he's got 5 stars in the composite, and you're talking him up. He's actually higher ranked at 24/7, 17 at 24/7 versus 20 in the composite. How come he doesn't have a 5th star at 24/7 Sports? And can we maybe expect that at some point in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I think that what's going to happen is, after the summer, the rankings, and this is funny. I appreciate you taking on the role of Twitter hater on this podcast. But what happens is, because we get that all. Somebody literally stopped me in the gym yesterday and be like, "You see that game? He did this. How is he not a 5-star?" And I was like, ironically, I wasn't able to get to the computer and switch it in the middle of the game. So what happens is that after the summer's over and we're able to take a full account of everything. And I'm not able to just respond with my dry sarcasm. It's, you go back, you kind of update rankings, you update the 5-star, 4-star classifications. And I think Caleb Foster is certainly somebody that has played his way into that, because it's not like he just had one good game. He's been doing it all week, and he did it the week prior, the first week of the July recruiting period in Kansas City as well. So he's been very consistently producing at a very high level. And I do think he's earned that 5th star, and that'll come to fruition once the system gets updated following the month.
So you mean to tell me, while you guys are at Peach Jam watching games, you're not just sitting there with an iPad, just like, oh, that was a nice chase down block. Oh no, there was a turnover. Like, you're not just, scrolling his ranking up and down during the course of a game.
No, and I think, people don't realize that is that rankings only get updated, predetermined times, a few times per year. And you don't want to be too reactive to what you see. Like, for me personally, and I'm not going to, go off on a tangent here about my process, but like I said, there's 5 courts going on at a time. You can't watch all 5. But what that means is that after, you basically watch 20% of what happens during the course of the day. When you go home next week, you've got to go back and dive into the film for that other 80% and make sure you see anything you missed beyond just what's on the stat sheet.
Well, we love the philosophical analysis of Adam Finklestein and learning more about the process of
almost as much as the dry sarcasm.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So thank you for joining us. This will be an abbreviated edition of the Ion College Basketball YouTube channel special here. And check out 247sports.com for all the coverage from Peach Jam and the other events on the summer circuit. Ton of info there about players who will shape the future of college basketball. So thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.